Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Coming up today,
Congressional investments. A new report is raising concerns about members of Congress and their personal stakes in the stock markets.
So when you have so many members of Congress, and more importantly, their staffs, that are actively buying and selling stocks that involve the industries and the specific businesses that they help oversee and regulate, it's incredibly concerning.
We'll explore. Plus, marching to save the lives of unborn children. We have a look at an annual rally in Washington that begins today.
Right now, though, I'm so hopeful. I mean, we've got, I think, almost 4 times the number of pregnancy centers as we have abortion clinics in the United States.
And later, the week that was, we'll share our roundup of this week's biggest stories in the news. All this and more are coming up now.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
we begin with that new report raising concerns about how some members of Congress, their staff, and their families are investing their money. Some are even suggesting they should be banned from Wall Street while they're still wielding power in Washington. Tara Mergener has a closer look at this top story in our eye-opening report.
Excuses from lawmakers range from an innocent oversight to clerical errors. Still, the revelation from this report is causing a show of unity not recently seen on Capitol Hill.
Go ahead, shout it out.
The gentleman is not in order.
Republicans and Democrats may not agree on much these days.
There'll be order in the House.
But Washington observers agree both are guilty of ignoring a decade-old law aimed at curbing corruption and conflicts of interest.
So when you have so many members of Congress, and more importantly, their staffs, that are actively buying and selling stocks that involve the industries and the specific businesses that they help oversee and regulate, it's incredibly concerning.
The 2012 Stock Act requires members to quickly disclose any stock trade made by themselves, a spouse, or a dependent child. Republican Senator Josh Hawley and Democratic Senator John Ossoff don't believe the process is working, and both are pushing bills to end stock trading by members of Congress.
You know, we know that lawmakers are not living up to the standard that they set for themselves, that they're violating the Stock Act's disclosure provision.
This isn't the first attempt at banning members from trading individual stocks. A year ago, House legislation would have required lawmakers, as well as their spouses and children, to put investment assets into a qualified blind trust. Another bill prevented trades for lawmakers and senior staffers, but not family members.
Sometimes even the far right and the far left coming together and basically saying, wait, why is this legal?
The latest debate follows a recent Business Insider investigation and other media reports of 50-plus members of Congress and some 180 staffers violating the Federal Stock Act. The offenses range from being late in disclosing trades to personally investing in industries they oversee. It follows the resignation of Federal Reserve Vice Chair Richard Clarida over questionable trading activity at the start of the COVID pandemic. Clarida apparently wasn't alone. The study reports numerous lawmakers holding, buying, or selling stock connected to COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers. Republican Senator Rand Paul was reportedly 16 months late in disclosing that his wife bought stock in a biopharmaceutical company that manufactures an antiviral COVID-19 treatment.
It makes it incredibly challenging when you have to evaluate decisions about vaccine mandates, or how many shots do you have to have from a booster perspective before you're considered fully vaccinated? Are we talking about things that are truly being driven by the science? Or are we talking about things that are driven by these companies that members of Congress are invested in?
Other members are accused of actively shaping policy while investing in corporations that could benefit from their work. They range from military defense contractors to energy companies, media outlets, and more. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, whose husband's holdings include numerous tech companies, is a vocal critic of a stock trade ban.
This is a free market, and we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Violators of the Stock Act face a fine of about $200, usually waived by Senate or House ethics officials. Now watchdogs and even some lawmakers are using this report to call for stricter penalties. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
The U.S. Supreme Court rejects another attempt to block the Texas law banning most abortions. It's another setback for abortion providers trying to put a halt to the law, which went into effect September 1st. The Texas Heartbeat Act bans abortions once cardiac activity is detected in the unborn baby, which is about 6 weeks. The group Texas Right to Life estimates the law has already saved about 10,000 babies from being aborted. YouTube has labeled one pastor's sermon hate speech. John MacArthur leads Grace Community Church in Los Angeles, and last Sunday he preached a sermon about biblical sexuality. In his sermon, he mentioned there was no such thing as transgender and that God made man male and female. YouTube silenced part of that sermon, labeling it hate speech. You can read more on this story by visiting cbnnews.com. And we have a wake-up call for believers. Some suggest Christianity is on its way out. In her new book, The Vanishing Faith, Loss, and the Twilight of Christianity in the Middle East, Janine Giovanni talks about the possible extinction of Christian communities across Syria, Egypt, Iraq, and other areas of the Middle East. And she shares what it would mean to the region. She points to a decline of believers in Iraq, which had about 1.5 million Christians during the time of Saddam Hussein's reign, but not anymore.
The Islamic State rolled through in 2014. Added to that, terrible economic conditions, lack of education, entrepreneurship opportunities. These people are migrating. Also, many were killed, of course, during the ISIS years. We're now down to, we don't have an accurate count, and it's always difficult to judge numbers, but somewhere between 150 and 200,000, which is a radical decline.
Yeah.
Now, there's other factors as well. There's climate change. Climate change in the Middle East is accelerating twice as fast as anywhere else. But more importantly, it's really a rise of radical groups who want to drive them out, combined with the lack of opportunity.
One bright spot for Christianity in the Middle East is Lebanon, where she says the Christian church is still thriving despite near economic collapse, terrorism, and other struggles. Coming up, the annual March for Life rally starts today. See why some say this could be the last march before Roe v. Wade is overturned. We'll have the story coming up.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Today is the annual March for Life in Washington. It comes on the anniversary of the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision legalizing abortion. 49 years after that decision, some say there's a cultural shift taking place in America. Abortion clinics are closing as more pro-life agency centers are opening up, outnumbering them by a rate of 4-to-1. Now, with a more conservative Supreme Court, they see a real chance to strike down Roe v. Wade. Here's Charlene Ayers.
For 25 years, the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates, or NIFLA, has equipped pregnancy centers to serve women and their communities. Now, after all the time, work, and money, its leaders and supporters are talking about the potential end of legalized abortion in America. The numbers and accomplishments tell the story of how this organization helps women choose life. Some 1,600 U.S. pregnancy centers. The introduction of using ultrasounds to the pro-life movement.
Since we started that, over 1,300 pro-life medical clinics utilizing ultrasound are in existence across the country. And an abortion-minded woman comes in, she's been told it's a blob of tissue, she sees the ultrasound, and bingo, we've seen huge numbers of women choose life because of that.
Alveda King applauds the boots-on-the-ground work.
The pregnancy care centers are the heart of the pro-life movement. And the reason I believe that, they don't just say to a mother who comes to the door and she's pregnant and faced with a decision to birth a child or not, but they speak to the mother. They support the birth of the child. The father is welcome, and the community is welcome. So I'm very fond of NIFLA's work.
Many pro-life advocates are optimistic that the culture is changing in favor of life. That includes Abby Johnson, a former manager in the abortion industry.
Right now, though, I'm so hopeful. I mean, we've got, I think, almost 4 times the number of pregnancy centers as we have abortion clinics in the United States. Abortion clinics are, closing down year after year. Culture is changing. Young people's minds are changing.
My prayer in the pro-life movement is that people will wake up, that the eyes of the nation and the world will open and realize that life is sacred from the womb to the tomb, and that there are life-affirming solutions that do not require that we kill the youngest, the weakest, and most innocent, the babies in the womb. I pray that we wake up, open our eyes, and choose life.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
And you can watch live streaming coverage of the 49th Annual March for Life rally today at noon Eastern. You can find it on the CBN News YouTube channel. Simply go to YouTube and search for CBN News. After the event is over, you'll also be able to see highlights and interviews on our YouTube channel and at cbnnews.com as well. Still ahead, diver Chase Lane received many honors throughout life, but despite the accolades, he once was in a dark place planning to end his life. We're going to share the story for you next.
Your news channel, your shows, the stories you care about. Anytime you want, anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
Well, last year, Kentucky diver Chase Lane was named the SEC Conference Men's Swimming and Diving Scholar Athlete of the Year. He also earned All-American honors by the NCAA. He even competed at the Olympic qualifiers. And yet, if Chase had his way, none of this would have happened, because a few years ago, he was in a dark place and planning to end his life. Take a look at the story.
I remember telling one of my roommates at the time, I was like, I truly believe that everybody would be happier if I was gone. And all I could do was look over the ledge there and be like, this is the night I'm gonna do it.
That night, Chase Lane's life changed forever. He had all the accolades and promise a young athlete could hope for. Yet Chase wanted to take his own life. In high school, he was a highly recruited diver, holding offers from some of the country's best schools. His mother, a Christian, had some strong advice about his college choice.
Some words she said were, I want you to go to a place that I know that coach will take care of you no matter what happens.
Chase accepted a scholarship from the University of Kentucky, and his excitement was at an all-time high.
Like, let's go. So I was super excited off the get-go.
However, his enthusiasm was short-lived, as the responsibilities of being a student athlete quickly took their toll.
I got very overwhelmed. My schedule, I was taking 18 credits, and of course the swimming and diving schedule is just wild. You're waking up early in the morning, and then you don't get home until, gosh, like 10 after tutors and everything, and then you're doing homework, taking a shower, trying to eat. Got very overwhelmed. So everything at the time I was doing was very anxiety-provoking.
Kentucky diving coach Ted Hata, a Christian, noticed that the freshman was struggling.
I could see something in him. His walk and his demeanor just started to hunch over. And he was dark and he was shuffling and he was limping a little bit, and something happened. And he said that I'm in a dark spot right now.
Got lost. And so that anxiety heightened and I became very, very depressed. But it was very relevant to my teammates and my peers, my coaches, my mentors at the time, that something was not right.
In spite of his depression, Chase continued to succeed as a diver.
And watch out, because he's only going to get better.
Still, no amount of success made things better. In March of 2018, at the NCAA's Swimming and Diving Championships, Chase decided to end it all.
I couldn't take it anymore. And all I could do was look over the ledge there and be like, this is the night I'm gonna do it.
I knew he was in a dark spot, but I didn't know, you just don't know I didn't know how serious it was.
Two things happened. Chase tweeted, "I wish everything was over." He also called his mother to tell her goodbye.
I told her, Mom, thank you for everything you ever did for me. I love you. But I think there's no purpose for me in this world. I can't do this anymore. Life is just, it's frustrating. There's no reason for me to be on this earth if I have no purpose. And I hung up.
Chase's mother called Coach Ted. The coach realized the urgency and quickly reached out to Chase. Coach Ted opened the Bible with Chase and shared God's love for him.
Matthew 6:25, Jesus talking about, look at the birds of the air. They neither reap nor sow. They don't stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. If God so cares for the birds of the air and the lilies of the field, won't he care more for you?
Chase was being cared for at college, just like his mother had hoped.
So this whole Kentucky family that I had was like a father-son duo. And he prayed for me in that room. Dude, the whole night I was up. But he was a prayer warrior for me in that moment. That brought me down on my knees and hands and really confessed that Jesus is Lord and that I needed a relationship with Jesus in order to move forward in my life.
He committed to reading God's Word on his own, and he joined a small group.
After I dissected those Gospels, I quickly learned that it was a relationship with Christ that I was missing. And I could find hope in that, just like anybody can. Because he died on that cross just for us. That was very eye-opening to me of what I was missing. I was like, I need that. I was hungry for it.
Today, Chase is a diving coach and a physical therapist. His desire is to help those struggling with anxiety and depression by sharing the good news he found in a relationship with Jesus Christ.
There's hope in Jesus. It's plain and simple. There's hope in Jesus. He died on that cross for us. There's no greater suffering that you will ever go through, me or you, we will ever go through, or anybody out there, than he did on that cross. There's also no greater victory. I don't believe that depression and anxiety belongs to anybody's life. We are not promised a spirit of fear. We're promised a spirit of peace. And so that peace, once you find that, you can live your life with frustration and all of that stuff, like everything going on in the world. But there's a peace that you can find within all of that, and that's in Jesus.
Coming up, we've got a look at the top stories from the week for you and a special announcement about a program we want to share with you this weekend. Stay with us.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. On this week's Jerusalem Dateline, we'll have a story on the historic UN vote to combat Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism. Plus, author and Middle East expert Joel Rosenberg examines the #1 threat facing the Jewish state in 2022. And we take a look at the celebration of the baptism of Jesus at the River Jordan. All this and more this week on Jerusalem Dateline. Back to you, Ephraim.
Thank you so much, Chris. I want to remind you at home that you can catch Jerusalem Dateline on the CBN News Channel at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can also find it on the CBN News app. Certainly been a busy week in the news. We've seen a hostage standoff, severe winter weather, escalating tensions between neighboring nations, and more. Here's a quick look back at the week that was.
The week began with a gunman holding people hostage at a Texas synagogue.
Malik Faisal Akram, originally from Blackburn, England, entered the Shabbat service at Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville Saturday, where police say Akram took a rabbi and 3 others hostage for almost 11 hours before officers stormed the building.
It ended with that suspect being killed and the hostages escaping unharmed. Weather became news this week, and the dig-out continues into the weekend, following heavy snowfall and icy conditions for millions of Americans.
Meteorologists said a foot or more of snow fell in parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York State through Monday. Up to 20 inches of snow fell in the North Carolina mountains. The system also hit the Tar Heel State with dangerous ice.
We're still following escalating tension between Russia and Ukraine. In President Joe Biden's first news conference of the year, he warned Russia there would be severe consequences for a move to invade Ukraine.
Newly released satellite images show Russia continuing to amass tanks, artillery, and military troops along Ukraine's border. Russia has more than 100,000 troops deployed, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned that number could double on relatively short order.
This week also included a holiday to remember the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The day on saw millions participating in events around the nation.
A life for none of us has been a crystal staff, but we must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means, keep moving.
And that's a look at the week that was here at CBN News. We've got a special programming note to share with you for the weekend. It's a 2-hour uplifting program we call Awakened. It's hosted by CBN's Ashley Key and myself. We're sharing inspiring stories and interviews with members of Maverick City Music, Pastor Chad Veach, rappers Andy Mineo and Wande, and so much more. The special airs this Sunday, January 23rd at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find it on Freeform, CBN.com, or the YouTube channel. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and I want to leave you with this thought as we wrap another week, and some of us lived through some wild weather this weekend. Life can bring about storms of trouble, but when you know who controls the storms, you can ride the waves of peace. Keep Jesus at the center and you won't go under. You simply can't. With that, I encourage you to make it a fabulous Friday and have yourself a wonderful weekend. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Thank you so much for watching. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time Monday. Goodbye and God bless.